One of my favorite ones, Ashtavakrasana, and it's always like the pose that's on all the social media, everything. But really, Ashtavakra it means one who's bent in 8 places, or bent in 8 places. The story is that he was in his mother's womb and his father was chanting the Vedas, and he was already sort of this very high being coming back to birth, and his father was chanting the Vedas and he kept making mistakes. After some time, his father was making these mistakes and he couldn't take it anymore, and he shouted from inside his mother's womb the corrections to his father so that he would chant it correctly. You know, if you know anything about father-son relationships, father did not take this very well. The in utero son was correcting his chanting. So he cursed his unborn child. And that curse, when he was born, left him deformed in 8 places. One story is he went to the palace of Janaka, which is the father of Sita. But her father was a king, and he would have host these meetings of yogis and sages who would come and talk about yoga and wisdom and the Vedas. And so he was having one of these sort of conferences of Ashtavakra, heard about it, and he wanted to go. He wanted to go and meet all these enlightened sages and beings and yogis. So he walked, and it took him many days to walk to the palace. So he got there a little bit late after the conference had already started and they were already in discussion, and he walked into the conference and everyone looked at him and just like gave him a strange look and started kind of laughing, like, what's this guy doing here? And then he started making a noise like he was laughing, and so King Janaka said to him, "Sir, why are you laughing?" He said, "I'm not laughing, I'm crying." He said, "Well, why are you crying?" He said, "I came here because I heard that there was a bunch of yogis gathering to talk about higher truth, but all I see is cobblers." And King Janaka says, "Don't you see sages here? Don't you see learned men?" And he says, "No, I see people that only view things from the outside, that are saying this skin is good, this skin is not good, this shape is nice, this shape is not nice. They're not seeing the true Atman." And from that, then King Janaka realized, oh, this is actually a very high sage, and they apologized and he bowed down and took him as his teacher. I think that that's kind of a nice story, because it really, it's specific in that it's saying, yoga is not about what's going on the outside, and it's not about how much you know about the Vedas and the wisdom and the, how great a yogi you are. All these people had these very big egos that thought that they were so wonderful and so learned and knew so much, and yet here's this humble, deformed person who really spoke the truth and was connected to that higher essence of yoga. Yeah, there's one posture in 3rd series also called Bhairavasana. And Bhairava is incarnation of Shiva, or like a part of Shiva. And if you know, so there's sort of 3 main deities in the Hindu pantheon as it is today, where Shiva is thought to be sort of the destroyer, or like this almighty Ishwara, the Lord. Brahma is the creator god. Vishnu is the sustainer. So Vishnu says to Brahma, who is the greatest creator in the universe? And Brahma says, well, it's me, of course. I created all this universe. And Vishnu says, oh. Brahma starts thinking about this more, and he's thinking, yeah, I'm pretty good. And he starts doing a bit more stuff, and he starts actually kind of taking over some of Shiva's duties and interfering with Shiva's work. And so Shiva catches wind that Brahma said that he's the greatest creator and God and should be worshipped as the Almighty. And Shiva's thinking, not good. And so he takes his baby fingernail and flicks it. And from that comes this incarnation, or this figure called Bhairava, who's sort of the annihilating principle of Shiva. And he goes and finds Brahma and chops off one of his 5 heads. So if you know about Brahma, he's usually only depicted with 4 heads, but originally he had 5 heads, which Shiva promptly chopped one off. And Bhairava held the head up to Brahman, and Brahma looked and realized, all of a sudden that was his moment of like awakening, and he realized that, oh, actually I was being quite prideful and egotic and arrogant, and he bows down to Bhairava and, humbles himself before Shiva.
And that's the posture where the leg wants to take your own head off.
Yeah, it's a posture where your legs, behind your head, it kind of feels like you're trying to behead yourself a little bit. Many postures remind us to keep our egos in check. The problem is sometimes I think, at first it's about keeping your ego in check, and then you get good at it, and then the real work happens, because then you actually have to keep your ego in check.